Welcome to Marriage Refresh 2024. Golly. So the way it's going to work, just to kind of give you a little, I'm the what do you call the person? MC, yeah. Oh, I like that. That sounds cool. Yeah. I will not rap though. Here in a few minutes, we're going to have Miss Jamie come and interview our good friends Ross and Jennifer Githens, and we're going to learn a lot of stuff from them as we talk to them, and then I'll talk to Ross some during the service. If you don't know that, Ross, we're going to do that during the service, and such, the heads up. Luke's going to preach to us about the gospel and marriage, basically. And so, and then tonight we'll gather, and I'll have a short talk. And so with my talk, if you would get your phones out and take this QR code, it's going to be a short, probably 5-minute assessment that I'm going to use during my talk. It's going to help. How would I say this? It's these 7 primal questions that every person kind of has on them that meets some deep emotional need that's going to help us relate to each other in our marriages. I think it'll be an encouraging talk. And then we'll have Ross and Miss Whitney Voss tonight to encourage us as well. And so going to be lots of good stuff tonight. Jesus says this in Matthew 19. He's asked about divorce. And he says this in Matthew 19. He answered, "Have you not read that he who created them from the beginning, he made them male and female? And he said, therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one." So no longer two, but they are one flesh. What God has joined together, let not man separate. God created us, and God created marriage. And in marriage, it's this process of us becoming one. And possibly on this earth, it might be the hardest thing there is. Is that fair to say? Because becoming one flesh together requires repentance. It requires humility. It requires patience. It requires grace. It requires communication. It requires all these things together. And I think there's those in the room today that have tried these things and failed these things and all these things. And we're going to try to give you some tools today and hopefully help you and encourage you. But here's maybe my biggest encouragement. If we can learn to attach and walk in our identity as sons and daughters many times, because God created us and invented marriage. And if we go to the source and walk with him, he'll do wonders for our marriages. So my hope, my prayer today is that we can lift our eyes up to him. And as we see him, he begins to transform us. And as we are transformed, we do become one flesh. And hear this, friends, when we are one flesh people together can change the world. Let me pray for us. Dear Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for our friends that are joining us today. Lord, give us ears to hear and bless our time together. We love you. I pray all this in your name. Amen. Jamie East.
Good morning. We are so excited to have y'all here. We're excited to have our friends Ross and Jennifer Githens. So if y'all want to go ahead and come up and have a seat in these really high, comfortable bar stools that we brought y'all. Hope you feel special and loved. Here's y'all's mic. Y'all can pass it as you need to. I love that you're starting out with it, Jen. I'm so proud of you for that. I'm also having flashbacks with me sitting on this side and y'all sitting on that side. So the last time we were in this configuration, we were on a boat in the Andaman Sea, and Jennifer and I were puking our guts up while Ross and lots of other people watched. So I am glad that we are here, but on solid ground that is not moving. So it's exciting to be here with y'all today. And for those of you who don't know, Ross is a marriage family therapist and all kinds of other things with lots of letters that I have no idea what they mean, but they're really important.
Just make them up.
Can I just make up letters, like alphabet
just
soup?
string them together.
And then Jen speaks a different language of codes because she's an educator, and so she has a whole lot of different letters that she can say as well. And she basically runs the school that she's at without the title because she is that awesome. So we are privileged to have them here with us today. So Y'all tell us a little bit about how you met each other.
I guess that goes back to drug rehab.
Yes.
That's how we
Always
start.
a good way to start. Always a good way.
You want to start with
How we met.
Is this how this is gonna go today? She's gonna like
I'm
set it
excited
up.
about this. She's like, hey.
you kind of did.
Yeah, so I guess a quick blurb of my testimony is that, normal kid, semi-normal, probably really hyper kid, elementary, middle school, high school, and in high school I lose my mind, of course, and mom and dad freaked out. Of course, the rumor was I was doing drugs, and I was just being a fool, and so they actually put me in Phoenix for about 6 months for a drug rehab, and then, of course, the advice of the drug rehab is you don't go back to your high school, you have to go to a new school. So I got placed in Evangel in the fall of my junior year, where all these athletes and cliques and friends that had been together for years. So I just made friends with some other guys there, and we became friends for life, and that would be her brother, which is weird because we're all cool. And I went to Louisiana College, and I would come back from college with my girlfriend, and Jennifer was the best host. She entertained both girlfriends I had. I did not have that many girlfriends. But Jennifer was just like my ride or die friend, and it was just awesome. And then one of the girls was like, she likes you. And I was like, that girl is going to marry a preacher. There's no way. Her standards are way above me, okay? I promise you. And so, yeah, one summer, I think it was the summer between our sophomore and our junior year in 99, we stayed up late and laughed, and things started clicking, and I was like, okay, I got to talk to her brother. This is getting weird. We can still save this. But, yes, that's how we met. I married my best friend's sister, which is weird.
I just love that she started with drug rehab, and you ended it with, I married my best friend's sister. Anything you need to add to that?
No, for one, if you have kids going through something hard and you have to send them to drug rehab, maybe it's just, if he would have never come to Evangel, if he would have never done drugs, it's still part of our story. It's still, the Lord redeemed it. I love that. And I didn't like him, as the one girlfriend said. I don't think I did. Maybe I did.
Okay, so let's reflect back on your years of marriage. What was your best year of marriage, and what was it that made it the best year?
I would say this year's our best year of marriage. Of course, I think back of getting married. Those were great memories. I think to not have to drive home. I remember those first year of marriage celebrations, or our little TV VCR combo, or the couch that Luke let me borrow. Luke was clutch for us back in those days.
He can always find furniture.
Oh my gosh, he could find furniture. He's like, I got several couches, come on over.
We know they're all
plethora,
full of
yeah.
office. Yeah.
Yes, oh my gosh, Luke was clutch, yes. But those were good years. I joke that we were broke and didn't know it, or when we went to Dallas, those were great years of me not having air conditioning and us just going to Six Flags. And there's highlights in there, but gosh, we just got back from Little Rock, and I don't know if we've ever been happier. So I think God is blessing us, and there's that, of course, inner feeling of, do we deserve this? Is it too good? Has God blessed us more than we even should be blessed? And I think we're dealing with that now, because both of my boys will be 18 and 16 next month. So we have one graduating this year. So it's I don't know, I wouldn't say the word dreading, but he's special needs. And so we're kind of talking about how are we going to transition? What legal things do we need to do to protect him? That is probably the heavy, but the wonderful part is that we're still laughing and we don't hate each other.
That is goals.
It's goals, not to hate each other.
Okay, so what is one of the biggest stressors in your marriage?
The kids. Yeah. Because I don't think we fight about anything as much as we fight about the kids. Because I'm probably Old Testament. I bring the law, right? You deserve death. We're selling the car, A little dramatic over here. And then Miss Relational, Peace Corps over here is let's pray for them, let's hug them, time out. I'm which is good. I'm not knocking time out. But these are the arguments we've kind of had of what's too much, which is usually me, and at what point are we talking too much? Because to me, I feel that is, I think that, in my opinion, even in marriage, I think women threaten 15 times, 18 times, and I think kids learn that, and they're like, okay, I'm almost in trouble, Or dad's like scorched the earth on the first one, and the women give that look, and then he's mad. He's like, "Why are you looking at me like that?" You know.
I remember something you said at one point, and I'm thinking about it now, is how you said that you've noticed that women have a higher threshold for disrespect than men,
Yes.
and that can drive some men crazy
Yes.
Yeah.
to see a kid be disrespected
Yeah.
that much.
And we really see this, especially with our 18-year-old who is verbally delayed. And so anytime he talks, I'm like, he's talking. Like, it's great. And Ross is like, yeah, but he's being a complete jerk. And I'm like, I know, but he's talking. Like, it's great. And so we've definitely had those kind of arguments. But, like, one of my favorites that happened recently was that our boys were outside playing at, like, 10:30 at night. And, like, they're
On a weeknight.
on a weeknight. But like at 9 o'clock, all of our internet devices go off every night.
Screen time.
Screen time, all of
Right.
that. That's just one of our guards that we put up for our kids. And so like, but they don't have to go to bed until 11. And so they have like 2 hours. I mean, they were getting along. Like they weren't fighting, no fist fighting. And so they were outside playing football on the trampoline at like 10:30. And I'm asleep because I'm like game from like 10 to 3 maybe. Like that's my I'm not a morning person or a night person. I'm like 10 to 3. So like I sleep in
You're a
and I
nooner.
go to
Yeah,
bed.
you're great at noon.
I'm great
Yeah.
at noon.
That's the highlight. Yeah.
For sure. And so I wake up the next morning and Ross looks at me and he's like, we have to talk because the boys are like grounded from everything. And I was like, for what? And he was like, they were playing at 10:30 outside. And I was like, is that against the rules? And he's like, how is that not against the rules? And I was like, they weren't fighting. Nobody had to go to the
Oh my
ER.
gosh.
And he was thinking they were being disrespectful to the neighbors.
And you're like, is murder a crime? I'm like, is murder a crime?
like it ended up being this huge ordeal about respect for everything. But like, and he literally wanted to ground them for a couple of months.
Not true.
I think so. And I was like, I mean, yes, we need to have a conversation, but like, have we ever told them that they're not allowed to be in the backyard?
We haven't told them not to murder. We haven't told them not
That
to
was
chase
his,
with
that was
knives.
his comeback. That was his comeback. And so one thing that we've done that I think is really good, because I'm way too lenient, I will say that.
I'm glad you can admit that.
I know, is that we don't issue punishments without the other. And so like that night when the boys got in trouble, they knew they were in trouble. They had to go to bed. And Ross is like, I'm going to talk to your mom tomorrow and I'm going to tell you what your punishment is. Because a few years ago, Ross would just say, you're grounded for, 6 months for
Yeah.
whatever. And
Yeah.
I'd be like,
Kiss
6
your friends
months?
goodbye. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, 6 months. And then it would be me. And so it looked like I was undermining him when we would come back off that, if that makes sense.
Because we decided you're only grounded 4 days. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we.
My marriage counseling advice to you: don't do air quotes when you're talking about.
Thank you. No.
Yeah.
Or like Ross likes to fine our children. That's the other thing he does, which I think is actually hysterical. But like if the
Yeah.
boys leave a light on downstairs, they have to
Yeah.
pay him $5.
Every day. Yeah.
Every day.
You want to help pay the bill? Yeah.
Which I'm okay with. See, I mean, it's money. They can pay it.
Yeah.
That's one of our arguments.
They don't care about my $400 light bill. They're gonna pay it. Yeah.
Okay, now that we have successfully sparked a fight, right? Tell us, how do you fight? What does it look like when you fight? Because we know it's not all sunshine and rainbows at the house.
Yeah. I'll say that we are not explosive people. That's just not our personality. I normally get super quiet and withdrawn, and then he kind of can turn into the counselor because he is one. And I always,
Was that a compliment?
sometimes,
Oh.
I always say like when he crosses his legs when we're having a discussion, he has to uncross his
Uncross
legs.
your legs.
Uncross your legs. That's a counselor.
You're not my
move.
counselor.
It takes a lot. I mean, if you can imagine. For one, we are very careful about our words when we're fighting. I never want to, in the moment of a fight or when we're having an issue, is it a single issue or is it a pattern?
That's good.
But in that moment, and things go through my head, I want to like character assassin, but we've chosen not to. And I think that's a choice, is that I think we've done a pretty good job of fair fighting.
When did that choice happen, though? Like,
A long time ago.
Okay.
And I think it came from watching parents, both sides, say things that probably felt good in the moment, right? Because you just watch your parents yell at each other and cuss each other, and you're like, there's got to be a better way. Like, I'm not even envious of their marriage, you know? And I guess I wanted to have a marriage that my boys wanted. And so if the Bible says she's fragile, like porcelain, that doesn't mean she's weak. That doesn't mean she's stupid. It just means that I can't take back what I said when it really felt good. And so I love that saying, don't do anything that feels good when you're mad. Punish yourself. This is a time to punish your flesh. And so 9 and 2, if you're Enneagram nerds, so we withdraw. We like, because we're both like, that's how we fight. We just get real quiet, or we have like a calm conversation like this, and the boys walk in. But we're trying to process. We're trying to calm down. And so I think my processing is like, go mow a yard, go run, go, cuss the dog. Like, excuse me, I know y'all don't cuss. I know y'all are holier than me. But get the sin out, right? Find a way to process, to heal, to get the raw emotion out. Because I got tired. This is what happened. I got tired of apologizing for what felt good, and what I meant it. I said it, right? But then later you calm down and you're like, I shouldn't be that ridiculous. I shouldn't be that emotional. And I think that's where I want my intelligence not to trump my heart. I want to be guarded. I want to be restrained. And that is something we have prioritized, is how we treat ourselves, that we are healing. We are not carrying resentment, carrying unforgiveness.
So y'all are not having fun.
Yes, I mean, some of y'all are what I call MMA couples, right? Not to name any clients here, but some of y'all like throwing, and that's cool. Like, y'all put your pads on and get to it. That's entertainment for y'all. But I just, the scars aren't worth it, if you ask me. And I think that if you're mature, if you're godly, if you're Christ-like, then why don't we duplicate the character of Christ? And I don't want to hurt her because it feels good. I don't want to bring up what she did because it feels good. Because I hear couples brag about that. Oh, I forgave him. And I'm like, well, why do you keep, like, because I joke that women, like, sometimes will load their belt full of bullets, and they're like, okay, I'm going to save that for later. Or he'll do it. I mean, I'm not saying guys aren't resentful or hold bitterness, but to me, forgiveness should lead to forgetfulness, right? And if you're still bringing it up, if every time we get in a fight it still comes up, that's not forgiveness. Because you're just saving it for the next fight so you can bring it up to get your point, to gain ground and hurt them. And I just think this is how enemies treat, not lovers.
So if you were counseling a younger version of yourself, or someone maybe, just about to get married, whatever, but thinking back on the things that you have messed up on, the things that you've done well, if you're counseling a younger version of yourself, what would you tell them?
I probably would sound like an old man that would frustrate me in my 20s, because my father-in-law used to do this junk. He would say, it's all going to work out. It's going to be okay. And I'm just like, oh, it's like, I hated that old man advice. But I guess what I would have said is that there are phases of being lonely. There are phases of being ignored. There are phases where we are exhausted. We were broke. Like, these are phases we had to go through. And that suffering has led to joy. That suffering has led to a possession, a prize that is better than I thought it could be. Because I remember having toddlers. I remember the resentment of, because here this affectionate woman, of course, starts having kids who are pulling on her or breastfeeding and all that. She was touched out, right? And so she crash lands in the bed beside me, and I'm like, well, okay, I guess we're not making love, and so it's like, there's that selfishness in me of like feeling number 4, feeling number 10 in her life, even though that may not have been true, it just felt that way then. And so I think what I would tell myself then is, if you keep being consistent, things have to get better, and they have. Because raising kids is wonderful. I love my boys. I'm glad we had them. I don't see an infant and be like, oh, I want infants, I'm like, oh, it's like, oh, I remember those tears. I'm happy for y'all, But I'm glad that we're not doing diapers. I'm glad that we're out of the, K through 5, don't let them kill themselves, era, or the middle school awkward, or now we have 2 high schoolers, and I'm thankful they're good kids. I just got to remind myself, I was in drug rehab when my boys were the age they are now. And the irony is that we have protected our kids. And so we've done such a good job protecting them that ironically they don't sometimes need a God the way we did. Isn't that interesting? So that since I was abused, I think I was searching for a God. I was desperate for a God. That's probably why I did such the reckless things I did. And so we actually have evangelism issues with our boys because they're like, we're Christian. Why are we going to church? Like, we love Jesus. I mean, we're good. Box checked. Why do we need to keep going? And we're like, okay, let's talk about forgiveness and patience. And, because I don't think me and Jim would be married if we weren't in church. Because where do you learn to forgive? Where do you learn to get that well of patience and renewing? Because even though we've lived a good life and we've protected our boys that haven't been hurt, we still need to go back to the gospel, that we still need Jesus. Even as happy as we are, even as blessed as God has made us, we still need the patience and the renewal, because every marriage I know runs out of love. And that's just simply because we get tired of loving. We get tired of giving. We get tired of not having our needs met.
I would say to someone newlywed or someone is that love is a choice, not a feeling. I don't always feel like being a good friend. I don't always feel like being intimate. A lot of times that's a choice, and especially for women. And that doesn't mean that the guy shouldn't be pursuing and all of those things, but I think that changed our marriage when we realized that what Hollywood calls love is lust. That's not realistic if you've been married for a long time.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean that we don't have moments, but that's not our everyday. And that's okay, because we are choosing to love each other, just like we choose to love our children. We can very easily choose not to, and I can ignore him and say, he's not on my agenda today. But I think we had to make that choice.
So let's be real. Have y'all ever thought about divorce?
Yes.
I mean, how do you not? I mean, I think with the statistics and how common, I sat down Cullen, my youngest, who's not 15, and he says, the whole why do we go to church thing. And I said, how many of your friends' parents are still married? And I think he went through 20 friends, and we could only find 2 whose parents were still married. And they both go to our church. And I was like, that's ironic. Let me just bring that correlation there. So, what was the question?
Have you ever thought about divorce?
Yes, sorry. I was like, I just got ahead of myself. I would be lying if quitting didn't come up, because I think there's this feeling, this desperation, are we always going to fight like this? Is this going to last forever? Is this a moment? Is this an episode? And I thank God that I serve a God that did not divorce me, that did not quit me. And so this is something I say to couples, is that what would your child have to do for you to abandon them? If they committed crimes, you would go visit them in prison. So there's this faithfulness, this covenant we've made with this child, because you are my blood. And then we look at our spouse and we say, well, hey, we're not compatible. We've outgrown each other. And so my joke is, why don't you say to your child what you want to say to your spouse? Let's see other people. I don't think I want to be your father anymore. I think we should, we should end. I think I'm done. I think I'm going to quit as your father. And it's amazing people's reaction, because they're like, that's a felony. We make fun of people who abandon their children. We don't have compassion or say, oh, I understand. Everybody's got to, have at least one divorce. We don't make jokes about that when it comes to children, because we are dedicated to them for life. If anything, I think I'm seeing parents who have prioritized their kids, that somehow that being a mom is their only purpose. Being a father is their only job. When I want to see this as a permanent commitment, and my children are a temporary commitment. Yes, I'll always be their father, but if I'm a good father, they're leaving, right? Absolutely. Right? Please, Jesus, please leave, right? I love you, but I want them to go to college. I want them to go work. I want them to strive to have independence, and then we will continue to travel alone, and they'll be jealous, which is good. I'm okay with that. I'm like, go get your own spouse, Jack told me that, he was probably 10. He's like, it's not fair. You get to sleep with her every night. And I was like, you know how expensive she is, But I guess I want to have those moments where because we're having these conversations with our senior of how do you get a girlfriend? How do you date? How do you, and I love that we're even starting that process of him, because he is delayed. So, at 18, because every part of him is delayed. Remember that. He even has a dental delay, which was fascinating for us. Because even studying his cognitive delay, his verbal delay, sexual delay, he even had a dental delay. His teeth were growing in years after they were supposed to. But it's fascinating because it almost feels like we have twins because they line up mature-wise. Or I'll hear Cullen teaching things to Jack, even though there's 2 years greater. But it's just a dynamic. I think that's part of having special need kids.
Well, let's talk about that. So you said that you have a special needs kids, and we have a lot of parents in here who have special needs kids. So what advice would you give for parents when kids with special needs have, a problem, or, it just gets really hard to parent a special needs kids?
The divorce rate for special need parents is 95%. So we need to understand that is the attack. That is the fierce battle that we're at, is that I love my son and I don't want him to cause the division he's caused. And so I think I've got to take a breath and not be right and hurt people trying to be right. Because as smart as I think I am, I don't want to be destructive in my intelligence. And I love her compassion. I love her heart. That's why I joke that she's New Testament, because that's really what she's good at, is the forgiveness and the patience and the understanding to take a breath and say, he doesn't understand. And somehow I vilify my children, because like when they're sick, I'm like, I don't believe them. Like, I just think they're lying, because I lied, so like, I was sick all the time, right? Back to air quotes, I know they're bad. But I think that's what we've had to learn, is that we've got to take our combined intelligence. That's why God gave us two parents. And say, what do you see? What is God telling you? What do you think we should do with this child? And in compromise, we both lose. We both didn't get what we wanted. That is the sign of a compromise. But I don't want to say, oh, she's an educator, somehow she trumps me. Or I get to say, oh, I have advanced degrees in behavioral science. I get to advance. No. We are not, there's no expert here. These are our children. What do we think we need to do? Do we make them, a child broke a monitor? Do we make him pay for it? Or was it an accident? Like, we need to call this case by case, because there are just not right answers. And we just got to land and have the peace that God is leading us to hopefully guide these boys, teach these boys, and have the grace that when they mess up, that we can hug them and say, hey, buddy, like, it was a mistake. You need to quit beating yourself up. We love you. What would you say?
I would say that normally there's one parent that's more of the advocate for that special needs child. In our family, it's me. And so I'm more in the trenches with that. So I'm the one who's looking at the laws. I'm the one who's going up to the school filing bullying reports for people being mean to him. I'm the one that's doing all of that. So what that does is that puts me kind of in a very protective role, I suppose, which means that when Ross comes in, sometimes he seems like part of the enemy. And so I have to be careful with that. Because he is the more disciplinarian one for sure. A great way to explain our son is that we went into Dollar General. I sent him in for the first time to go buy something. I don't remember. And when he walked out, there was a homeless man sitting there, and he said, do you have any money? And Jack opened up his wallet and gave him everything and came and got back in the car with me. And I said, what just happened? And he said, well, the guy asked me for my money. And I said, you didn't have to give it to him. And he said, I would be lying if I said I didn't have the money. Like, it's so black and white with him. And then I said, well, first of all, that was my money. That wasn't your money, because he was 15 at the time. But he's so simplistic. Now, we are very fortunate. He's able to drive. So we have a driver's license, which is a game changer for us. But we are, I think you said, having to go through the legal process of putting some guides in place so that people can't take advantage of him. He'll probably live with us or live close by us most of his life. And so that's a different dynamic that we're going to have. Most of us hope that they're going to grow up and leave us. And that is our hope for Jack. But we also are realists to say he may never. We may, build a mother-in-law suite for him, and that may be where he lives. But for me, as the advocate, as the one that's on all of the Facebook groups, on all the things, I have to be sure and put myself in check that he is not anti-Jack, or he's not trying to be too hard on Jack. Sometimes he doesn't understand. And so like we just had this, we really just had an argument this week about it.
Of course, right, before a marriage retreat, yeah.
It's great. I was like, this is so the Lord. And I can't ever remember I never remember what our arguments, I don't remember how long we've been married. I don't remember any of that stuff.
Who cares?
He deals with it all the time. He deals with it.
Numbers.
I know. What was it about? It was something with him. See, you don't remember either.
I think it was,
We were talking about him getting a job. That's what it's
Oh,
about.
That's what it was That's what it was about. And so his way of talking to Jack is the same way that his dad talked to him, which was, you're about to be 18, you're about to graduate high school.
let's go.
Which has been a feat in itself.
That's right.
And so he's like, if you don't get a job, I'm gonna sell the car and I'm gonna do this. And it does the opposite of motivating Jack. Now he can talk that way to Cullen, but to Jack's just like, Dad's not for me. Dad wants to sell my car. Dad doesn't want me to have a life.
No, he says it's all about money. That's what he said. And I was like, I saw red. I was like,
And then
yes, it's all about money. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, because that's what he says. Because, he's eventually going to have to pay rent and do all the things that we do. And then in the middle of this argument that we had, I just look at him and I'm like, this is not going well. Like, stop. Like, you are doing more damage than good.
Right.
And in that moment, he just got mad. He was like, why are you looking at me like that? And I'm like, because this is ridiculous. Stop. Everybody stop. I'm known for that in my house. Everyone go. Everyone back up. Everyone.
You're in timeout. You're in timeout.
Everybody goes
You're
to
in timeout.
Because Jack remembers stuff like when he was 3 and 4 that he still brings up. Like he remembers if somebody was mean to him or, like way back when. So I'm like,
Yeah.
he remembers every single word. And so if Ross says, I'm going to sell your car, Jack goes into a fear mode of, I'm going to lose my car. And we will still talk about this in 5 years. In 10 years, we will still talk about, even if he has a different car, we'll still talk about, well, Dad wanted to take my car. And so, but us trying to figure out, and that's really what it took this week, is because we probably had like a level 7 fight about it. And I was like, I'm so mad because you wouldn't stop. And he was like, he has to hear this. He's almost an adult. And I'm like, but you forget, he's in age almost 18, but he is delayed. He is not mature-wise an 18-year-old. And so we had to have this whole thing. And then the next day we had to come together and say, well, I'm not upset with the whole conversation. I'm upset how you spoke to me during it. And then he's like, I've already apologized, we're done. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm still hurt. So like we have to go through all of these phases. And then like day 3, I just have to choose to forgive. Because we can both like be right. He can be right that we need to push our son. And I can be right that he's delayed. But in the end, we have to agree to come back together.
It's good.
Because Jack is not going to have the life that he needs if we are both not in the picture.
That's right.
That's great, thank you. So you both work full-time jobs. Just a few minutes, how does it look for y'all to both work and balance family, marriage, all the things?
And we're both probably a little workaholic.
Yeah.
I think little is an understatement.
I know. I acceptance is the first step. We really try, for one, we try to get away together at least once a quarter, every 6 months. Not to go like on crazy trips, but like we just went to Pettigene, Arkansas, and we went hiking and saw the waterfall that I didn't even know Arkansas had huge waterfalls, but they did. Huge. And so like we have to do that daily. Like if I have stuff in the evenings for school, he'll come and hang out with me at a basketball game. Like that's very practical things. If he's doing things, like if he's, playing for a church or whatever, then I'll go and be there with him. So we choose to kind of do life together. That even though we both...
Yeah. When I get invited to speak at a church, she comes. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's hard. It's hard because when I'm home, and I teach middle school, so you have to be a little crazy to teach middle school. And so at the end of the day, I'm done. I'm done with attitudes. I'm done with people rolling their eyes at me. I'm done with all of it. So like I'm very much an introvert. And so I need to like recharge. And he comes home, he's been talking to people all day. So he doesn't necessarily want to come home and talk either. So we both just have, like, we learn to rest together. So like we can sit and we can watch a show, or we can sit and both watch different shows on our iPad, but we're we're in the bed together.
That's
like,
so romantic. I love when
So
our iPads are
romantic.
back to back. I'm like, we are.
But like, because we are recharging, but we're choosing to be together because it is.
What I love about that is like if you're like, hey, this our time together is watching iPads beside each other on the bed, you know, you'd be like, whoa, that's so weird. That does
Right.
not sound very good. But you have figured out what it looks like
Yeah.
for y'all.
Yep.
For sure.
And that seems like a very countercultural thing. Like the culture tends to tell us this is what it looks like to be intimate. This is what it
Yeah.
looks like to spend time together. But y'all have just had conversations and figured out what it looks like for you.
But I think it goes back to investment, is that when she wants to go on a walk and she's like, do you want to come with me? That becomes a loaded question, because I'm like, do you want time alone? Is this a setup? Like, do you really want me to come, or are you just offering?
A
You know?
woman would never do that.
Never. Oh my gosh, y'all always say what you mean. Yes, you never cry and be like, I don't know why I'm crying. Yeah.
Sometimes you don't.
Oh, I believe it. I've been married a minute. I understand y'all really don't know. Just so frustrating as a fella. And I think that's part of the investment, is that I love to serve her, because I think that's part of the investment side of when I make something that's important to her, important to me, there is never a sweeter time for us. And so the same with her, is that for her to come speak at these things when I know she's an introvert makes me feel loved, because she enriches my ministry. She is the other side of what does a woman need to do? How does God, because I can't talk to women the way I talk to men. I've tried, but at the end of the day, this is, just to be blunt here, right? I'm not saying male OBGYNs are bad, but I think the females are killing it. You know what I'm saying? Like there's an expertise, right? A woman feels heard when she says, this is what my body does. This is what I feel. These are the hormones I feel. And I think that's part of, if we're investors, if we love each other, if we're doing loving things, then we don't have these hobbies that are dragging us apart. And I think we try to be very careful, whether it's, because there are things we are sometimes not interested in. But if I love rental properties and she is willing to talk to me or talk it through, that becomes sexy for me, because that shows her investing in me, of like, what are your dreams? What does that look like? I want to understand it, not to attack it, but to join the team.
It sounds like a lot of hard communication, maybe some fighting, some arguing over the years that has led y'all to figure these things out.
Yep.
And I think that the more we can get to know each other on these like really deep levels, because I've heard y'all say things, you know each other's love language, you know each other's Enneagram, you know each other's personality, you know what gives them life, whether they're an introvert or extrovert, and how to, let them go. And so that is one of the things tonight that Jason is going to get into, is the stuff with these 7 primal questions. And it is, I've had a few weeks to really dig into it, and it has been just amazing to realize how everything in my life has filtered through this question that drives me.